Hey.
Yo, what's going on, y'all?
Welcome to the Miller Time Podcast.
Miller Time Podcast.
Whoa.
People of color redefining success.
Yeah.
Success. How y'all doing today? Y'all good?
Yes, I'm doing good.
Yeah? It's good to see y'all. All y'all out there in your cars and in your homes and listening to this on YouTube, if that's a thing.
No, you can't listen to podcasts on YouTube.
You will eventually.
Okay.
And we're going to be the first to
Okay.
shout you out, YouTube. So we need some coin for that, all right? But no, we hope y'all doing well today. And we hope that everything's going well because today was a very long day for us. We spent a lot of time filming a lot of content today. We actually got to do some content that eventually y'all be able to see. Y'all probably... Maybe it'll be out by the time you guys listen to this podcast.
Probably.
It'll probably be out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're back from vacation. Last episode, we were in San Diego, California. Now we're back at our home in Richmond, California. And today, we got a lot in store for you. So we just want to thank you all for tuning in again and listening to us at the Miller Time Podcast. Again, I am Patrick Miller, and this is my wife,
Courtney Miller.
And we are millennial Black Christian business owner couple, and we
All the
are
adjectives.
all of it, and we are super excited to be doing this podcast. Today we are going to be talking about, or actually we're going to be flowing through our series that we've been going through in our personal what do we call it again?
Philosophy of
success. We're going through our personal philosophy of success, and we are going to be moving from Brace, which we talked about last week, and we're going to be moving into Spark. And so our entire philosophy of success, we call it BSPF, and that is Brace, Spark, Purpose, Flow. And today we are on Spark. And what we believe about Spark is that hope changes the future.
Yes.
Hope changes the future. And so today, Courtney's going to be leading us in a conversation around Spark, and she's going to direct us through, and we're going to be talking about how you can create an extraordinary life, or the extraordinary life that you desire, by taking control of your mind. A lot of times our mind can cause us to do all sorts of things, and it can stop us from doing all sorts of things. And so in this conversation today, Courtney's going to be leading us through Spark from a mental health standpoint, and we're going to talk about how your thoughts and your beliefs can create all sorts of anxieties and fears and roadblocks that can stop you from having success. And we're going to talk about how you can begin to create a transformation from limiting beliefs into empowering beliefs. And that transformation is what we call Spark. And this will be a 2-part episode. The first part will really talk about what are limiting beliefs and where do they come from and how do they start, and then how do you identify what's a limiting belief, or if you have a limiting belief. And then the next part will talk about how you can begin to transform your focus from limiting beliefs to an empowering belief so that you can create the extraordinary life you desire. And I will ask a bunch of questions and be maybe even devil's advocate a little bit and try to get a lot of detail as I can, just so that even the listener, you at home, you can get some good understanding around this through my perspective of asking questions. And again, when we start putting out these podcasts, and you guys have questions, you guys have any thoughts or anything like that you want to share with us, please feel free to shoot us any questions. We would love to answer some of your questions on our podcast. You can shoot that to www.CoCoPlanMyLife.com. That's CoCoPlanMyLife.com. And we'll even post some of your questions here on our podcast. But yeah, without further ado, you ready for this?
Let's do this.
Are you ready?
Always.
Are you ready?
I stay ready.
Okay. All right. If you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
Okay.
All right. Let's do this.
Okay. Ask me something.
So Spark, let's talk about Spark. I guess I can begin with Spark. I know that what we've developed Spark to be and how we associate Spark and how we use it in our business and even our own life. We talk about beliefs all the time,
right.
Even in our own personal conversation. There's some times where I'm like, is that a limiting belief or is that an empowering belief?
I hate it when he does that.
Right. Because I'm like, look.
You're not my coach, you my husband.
I'm your coach husband. But yeah, we talk about belief and we talk about how with everything, whatever you do, that there's a lot of language and a lot of belief that goes into the things that we do, and that if you're not aware of your language or even your beliefs, that it could limit you, right?
Yeah, and I mean, even in the field of psychology, we kind of even talk about like our biases. Like our biases are based off our assumptions, which are based off our thoughts, which are based off our beliefs. And so if we are not cognizant of our biases, then, we're walking around through the world, whether we're racist, we're sexist, we're classist, all the isms, and those are based off beliefs that we have. And so it's really important that we become aware of what are the things we're believing about ourselves and the world around us.
That reminds me of like a big word that I learned when I was in high school, metacognition, which is all about thinking about thinking.
Thinking about our thinking.
And so it's like, if you're not aware, or if you don't have the ability to think about your own thinking, then it's possible that you can have biases. How you say it again? What's the word?
I don't know. Maybe it's biases, but I like saying biases.
Okay. All right. That's the I'm in grad school way of saying it.
Sure.
That's like the people who
it's
say.
Like people who don't say research, they say research.
Oh, I've never heard that. I would be so annoyed. They definitely say that at school. Like, it's not research, it's research. Oh, gosh. It's like the people who say, instead of saying mature, they say mature.
I haven't heard that.
No, Miss Deborah Robinson says that all the time. She's like, you need to be mature. I'm like, wow, you think highly of yourself, don't you?
We love her, by the way. That was our pre-engagement counselor.
She was. She helped us through a lot of limiting beliefs.
Yeah, she definitely
working through
did.
those, especially in our relationship.
We love her.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to kind of dig into this. So again, I know that we have limiting beliefs around a lot of areas in our life, whether it be with like success, whether it be with relationships, whether it be with like whatever. Where do limiting beliefs come from?
Oh, where do we begin with that? Well, our beliefs they can go on so many different levels, but as children, even as babies in the womb, like genetics, environmental things, there's so many things that impact even the way our brain develops and the kind of person we become. And then when we're birthed into our environment and our families, we're observing a lot of things, we're interacting in certain kind of ways. And even as a child, you're becoming as you see and you interact, and even with your parents, there's neurons, there's dendrites in our brains that are firing, synapses, and all these things happening where when let's just say we're crying and our mother is not coming to our rescue, we can start to develop the belief as a baby, maybe my mom doesn't really care about me. Maybe my mom is not a dependable human being. So as we get older in life, then a toddler, and then, we have these reinforcing maybe experiences that show us maybe people aren't dependable, that when I'm feeling emotional or when I'm feeling vulnerable, I can't depend on people to come to me, to rescue me, that people don't really care when I'm in crisis.
That's really scary. So I'm just thinking about as a parent, because I know there's a lot of parents that we know who are struggling with either do I let my child sleep in the bed with me, or do I put them in their own room because I don't want them to be spoiled,
right.
Which is hard. So it's our dendrites and all these, what were they called?
Dendrites, synapses, neurons,
all these things
stuff in the brain.
Are those being formed when you I guess with a lot of Americans, what we think is spoiling a child to let them sleep in the bed past a certain age, that they should go sleep in their own room. What do you do when you're like, all right, I don't want to spoil my child, but I don't want them to think that I'm not dependable either?
I mean, we always have to look at culture. Like, the context of culture is often something that's ignored. So in certain cultures, kids will stay in the bed with their parents until like 9 years old. And that's perfectly normal. But in America, it's viewed as you're spoiling your child. Your child's going to be overly dependent on you now. But that's because we live in a very individualistic culture.
That's interesting.
And like a lot of other cultures, which are pretty much people of color, have a lot of collectivist cultures that are all about community, depending on each other, very interconnected. And so we can look at, one thing and say, yeah, like parents shouldn't be letting their kids sleep in the bed with them. But when it comes to like a lot of cultures, it's like that is how we like bond. That's how we stay close to each other. So it's kind of hard to say like, yeah, you shouldn't be letting your kids stay in the bed because when they get older, they're not going to be independent. But it's like, it really is like, what does your culture value?
That's interesting. So we develop these beliefs from, like a very young age, and whether it be like depending on how our parents treat us and then how we associate that with society. So I imagine that if a child is like, oh, my mother was never really there for me anytime I was crying and anytime I needed her. And then I look around and I see in my culture, I see a lot of parents who are very dependable and come through for their kids all the time. Then maybe I even complete that belief where like, okay, yeah, I've affirmed it. Like, or maybe I'm reaffirming a belief that, yeah, my mom wasn't dependable because now I see all these other dependable parents.
I mean, as we go through life and as adults too, there's something called confirmation bias. So as we're going throughout different experiences, we are biased to lean toward like looking for things. Like I'm going to look to see if someone's going to let me down. And because we're looking for it, most likely you're going to find it. You're going to find someone that's not dependable. And it's going to be like, see, I told you, I knew people weren't dependable because our mind is searching for the evidence to prove us right. And so it really goes into like even our beliefs, as children, a lot of times when people go through, especially like traumatic things, a lot of difficult situations that we have to like find a way to defend ourselves emotionally, physically, whatever. These things are almost like defense mechanisms, sometimes the beliefs that we form to be able to protect us emotionally from very traumatic things that we've had to endure. And so let's just say we were sexually abused. When we start to have the belief people are not safe, we had to develop that belief after having such a trauma happen to us so that we can go throughout life.
To keep ourselves safe from any other situation that might happen.
Right. And so sometimes we can look at like, these beliefs that are very limiting as like, oh my gosh, like you just need to turn them into empowering beliefs. But we also need to understand that a lot of times the limiting beliefs that sometimes we form in childhood, we form them as a way to like avoid threat in order to take care of ourselves. And so psychologically, we can get into this place of like being in survival mode based off a lot of the experiences that we've had. And then when we become adults, it still feels like we're in survival mode based off trauma we've experienced in our past. And so I think those beliefs can often leave us in this place of like a never-ending anxiety because we never really had the resolve or the comfort or the care or even the time to process a lot of challenges that we've gone through. So our beliefs are always on like threat level or survival level or like how can I make sure this person isn't going to hurt me because of the things that people have gone through.
I think that's so interesting because when they study the mind and like just even biologically our mind is such a like super well developed computer and that it from the beginning of dawn has been looking to try to keep humans like safe. Like that's what it's been. And so usually when we face a threat or we face a challenge, like our mind is like, oh, here's a challenge. This is going to harm you. Fire. Stay away from that. And so what your mind does is records data so that you don't even have to like really even think about it anymore. It's not in the forefront of your mind anymore. I need to make a decision not to touch fire. I know not to touch fire, so I'm already afraid. Like in the moment I start getting close to fire, or someone's playing with fire in front of my face, I get nervous. I start sweating. My heart starts to pump because like now adrenaline and cortisol is pumped into my blood, and like I'm either ready to punch you in the face or I'm going to take off running because of fear. But our mind records data and kind of really trains us to move in a direction to keep us safe. But what's interesting is that, yeah, like you said, like we can have beliefs that were developed to keep us safe in one period or even time of our life, which is super important. But those same beliefs may also harm us from pursuing something that is actually beneficial for us later on. That like as an adult, the same belief that I might have had that like I can't trust people can be dangerous as an adult when you need to develop relationships and you need to develop social circles and even develop a relationship so that you can move in romantically. That if you have the belief that I can't trust people, then it's going to be very hard to move forward. But the mind is such a like powerful thing that like it's like, yeah, but that was dangerous last time, so I'm not even going to let you think about it. Don't even do it. Like don't even move forward. How does one, I guess, identify, or how do you think that one would identify it's time to move from this belief that this belief is actually, it's moved from an empowering belief or maybe a safety thing, and now it's actually like limiting me now?
That's difficult because I think as soon as you mention that about like our mind starts recording data and it's a way of like protecting ourselves now because it remembers that one time something happened. It makes me think of like I have a fear of needles. And my fear of needles didn't just randomly start.
It's there though.
It's very there.
She will cry, y'all.
I mean, it's real. And it makes me think probably as a child, I mean, of course I can remember my adult experiences that are traumatic, but I'm sure as a child, you think you just go into this weird office with your mom and then you end up getting like 9 shots from the doctor and all you get is a sucker and a sticker. Like, what is that going to do? I'm like traumatized. And so now even as an adult, I am still, every time I get an injection, blood drawn, like I get a huge bruise on my arm. It's like they can't find the vein. It's like very traumatic. And like I can't remember a time probably in the past 6 years where I haven't cried after getting a shot, getting blood drawn, because like my body tenses up. I start sweating. My hands get clammy. It feels like my heart is about to come out of my chest. And it's like every time I need to have Patrick with me when I get shots. And it's become this debilitating experience for me that now as I'm thinking about like, will I ever be able to have a child? Because I know during the pregnancy experience and during labor and delivery, you just got needles in you all day. And so I was talking actually to my cousin like, yeah, so how many needles do you actually get in you? She's like, oh, girl, you're going to be getting shots.
Why would you even ask?
It's very important. So the reason I bring that up is because I am now getting to this place in my life where maybe my fear of needles was a safety thing for me. I've avoided it many times in my life. Like my doctor will be like, hey, we want you to get your blood drawn to check your thyroid. I'm like, nope. Guess we'll never know how my thyroid is.
Oh, wow. That's terrible.
You know.
So at this point, it's actually limiting you from getting like your health taken care of now.
Oh, yeah. But I'm starting to realize, like, you know, as we discuss like family planning in the future, this is not just something that is like, oh, yeah, Courtney has like a fear of needles. Like, I have avoided multiple doctor's appointments because I knew I was going to have to get shots.
Wow.
I've canceled doctor's appointments because they told me I was due for shots. And so as I am thinking about the future, I realize like this is no longer serving me. Like this limiting belief that I have about needles, that needles are going to kill me or needles are going to hurt me and make my heart stop. And like, I mean, I don't go that far, but it's this just like, I freeze when I think of needles. And so I am now getting to the point where this belief that I have about needles is actually keeping me stuck, and I'm not able to progress and move on toward goals that I have in my life, toward taking care of myself. And so I think to answer your question, once we get to the place where we're like, I am being so debilitated by this belief, this fear, where I'm like stuck, I'm not able to achieve the things I want in my life, I think that's when we know it's time to assess.
I think that's really good, because what it points to is that in order to recognize that you have a limiting belief, you have to have a direction that you're moving in. Like, you have to understand a goal, or at least a sense of purpose. Like, you have to know what direction that you want to move in, and then use that as a way to say, like, oh, I can't even move in this direction now because of my fear of needles. Like, for you, you're like, okay, well, one day I want to get pregnant and I want to have a child. Oh, needles. No, can't do it. Oh, but I really want to have a child. Okay, yeah, this is limiting me. So it's almost like limiting beliefs can be invisible until it's time to, like,
achieve something
you really want. And you're like, oh, wow, okay, this has been holding me back. I need to do something about this.
Our beliefs completely construe what our reality is. And so my reality will be limited based off the beliefs that I currently have, and they will impact what my future reality will look like because of these beliefs. Yeah. So with beliefs, our mind is just so powerful. Like, we have the power to, I think sometimes people can feel a little controversial about this, like, especially when there has been trauma, like you said, that's happened. Do we really have the power to rewrite our brain when, let's just say, rape happens, or gun violence, or neglect? And so how, when we go through such anxiety-producing, scarring experiences, how do we change our beliefs when it literally has changed our whole life? Hold up. Stop the music, please. It's time to announce our giveaway winners. We put out a giveaway to launch us off with our podcast release. And it's time to announce who won from our raffle. People were entering in through multiple ways, whether it's through sharing through Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, multiple ways of showing us love. And so we have our winners that we're going to announce. And the prizes that we were giving away was, one, the grand prize was $100 cash moolah. The second prize was a free CoCo Plan My Life session. And the third was a free CoCo Plan My Life budget template, which comes with a whole bunch of things installed in it, how to use it, setting goals, looking at the timeline for the month, a lot of goodness. And so we are so excited to announce who won these 3 prizes. Drum roll. And starting with our third prize winner of our budget template, the winner is Brenda Taylor. Congratulations, Brenda. We're so happy for you. We hope you enjoy. And our second place winner is Joseph Smith. We hope, Joe, that you appreciate this free CoCo Plan My Life session. And time for our grand prize winner. Drum roll. Our grand prize winner of $100 cash money is the one, the only, Portia Kelly. We thank you so much, Portia, for entering our giveaway. Thank you so much for participating. And we just want to thank everybody that participated in this giveaway. We appreciate the love. We appreciate all the sharing. And don't worry, there's going to be future giveaways to come. So for the people who won, we would love if you'd email us at themillers@cocoplanmylife.com to claim your prize. You have until Tuesday, October 8th at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to claim your prize. So we look forward to hearing from our raffle winners, and we hope that everyone enjoys the rest of this episode.
So I think just to kind of recap on what has been said, one, limiting beliefs come from actually not a bad place. They really come from a place of safety and defending yourself or protecting yourself from harm. Limiting beliefs are identified as a problem when they are stopping you from progressing to a current goal. And then identifying that, okay, this belief that I have now is now actually a hindrance to make that switch. Now we need to flip, either maybe not even flip the belief, because I think a lot of times the thought is change this belief. So if I have a belief that I hate needles or I'm afraid of needles, I can't just tell myself I love needles.
I love needles.
Right.
Never.
It doesn't really work that way. And in fact, a lot of times empowering beliefs, or the best empowering beliefs, don't actually rewrite everything that they knew, or it doesn't change, it doesn't substitute. And especially with adult learning, this is some of the stuff that I've learned with doing like learning development for adults, is that with new information or new knowledge, you can't substitute, that you actually have to come alongside and complement. So it actually has to be added to what they know. That if you try to substitute what they know, then the moment a situation that comes up that maybe is contrary to the new information you taught them, they'll revert back to that old belief or the old knowledge that they used to rely on. That, especially with adults, that a lot of times you can't substitute, that you actually have to complement or you have to add to. It's like addition to what you know. Let's move you forward from here. So with beliefs and understanding the beliefs, the second question I have is around spark. What we talk about spark is about an experience, right? Spark is an experience that will either debunk or start to kind of like disqualify a limiting belief, or create a new belief, or even empower that new limiting belief. How does that happen? Can you explain a little bit about what is spark, and what is a spark, and how do you spark?
Yeah. So this makes me think of CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, which cognitions are our thoughts, our mindsets, our beliefs. Behavioral is our behavior, so our habits, the patterns, things like that. And then, therapy. So cognition is in that word metacognition. So cognition is the thinking pattern. Meta is like being within the thinking within thinking. Right. So CBT is really all about like, how do we look at bringing change into our thoughts so that it influences our behaviors. So a spark is being able to provide experiences that challenge those beliefs and helps to empower us to create those new beliefs. And sometimes that takes a lot of time because beliefs have been formed and solidified, and there's been a lot of neurons that have been firing in that part of our brain. So it's like a structure that's built up in our mind. And it
actually physically is a structure.
Though, right? It really is. Like, it looks like, let's just think of like little towers all over SF. Like, these are things that are built up. And if you guys want more research on this, you can look at Dr. Caroline Leaf, her book, Switch on the Brain, which really just talks about like, these are physical, real things that like what she calls occupy mental real estate. And so there's structures in our brains that are based off these beliefs, whether they're good or bad. And so taking the time to restructure these beliefs, it has to be intentional. And so what we believe really with Spark is like having those intentional experiences, conversations, encounters to be able to challenge these things. And sometimes that comes through therapy. I mean, having therapy for me, even going back to talking about overcoming anxiety, when I sought out therapy, it was really, I just wanted a space where I can process, a space of like really processing a lot of stress from grad school. But as I was in therapy, I realized that like I just carry a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry, a lot of fear of the future. And I think a lot of the base of anxiety is based on fear. And so with providing experiences to help you overcome fear, for example, I think sometimes with CBT, there are things where you just like shock yourself and just do what you fear completely anyway. But most of the time, it's a small progression.
Well, that's when you said shock. I think Tony Robbins does this like, I think he calls it shock therapy or he calls it something like that. But he literally every morning he wakes up and he does a cold plunge where he like jumps into cold water. It's like an 8-foot deep pool, but it's probably only like 4 feet wide, 3 feet wide, and he literally just dives in the morning because he's like, mind, you're not going to do what you want to do, like you're going to do what I tell you to do, or like you That's just hard. Because you're afraid, just because you're like you don't want to do it, you're going to listen to me, which is really interesting.
I could never do that. Cold water is something I fear as well.
Wow.
Can't stand cold. Black people don't do good in cold. That's just science.
Is that science or stereotypes?
No, I do want to look into that because I feel like it's real. At least all the women in my family, none of us can do cold at all.
Got you. All the RGs.
All the overalls.
RGs and overalls. Yeah. Yeah, I don't do good in cold. Gotcha.
So when it comes to how do we work through then like anxiety, overcoming the limiting beliefs sometimes that keep us anxious? Sometimes it has to be a progression thing. Like sometimes it has to be having the time to process, because sometimes we don't even realize we have these beliefs. We just think this is how reality is. Like I'm always on defense. Like this is just how it is. And then we don't realize, wait, how did I end up this way? Like not everyone thinks the way you do. And so realizing like my fear of needles, like I can continue moving forward, but there's a lot of things it's going to limit me from. And so I need to have experiences that will help me to challenge those limiting beliefs so that I can actually move toward my goal. So
let's talk about that. What would be, let's just say the limiting belief is that, what's your limiting belief around needles?
Needles are excruciatingly painful and they will almost kill me.
Okay. All right. Let's just say needles are painful and will kill you.
I know they won't kill me. Maybe like I will be in so much pain that it will be so overwhelming, and the only way I can release that pain is through crying. So like the needles will bring overwhelming pain. Yes. Gotcha.
So let's say that is the limiting belief, and because of that, it's like, I can't. And maybe the belief is, I can't even handle that pain, so I'm not going to go to the doctor anyway, because I can't handle it. Like, I don't believe I can handle that pain. What is an experience that you would need to have? What would be the spark that would start to transform that belief?
Well, when I was in therapy, I was like asking my therapist, I'm like, hey, can you use some CBT on me to like help me work through my fear of needles? She was like, well, that means I would have to like find some needles and like start introducing it to you in session.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh gosh, no. But you like with the whole progression thing, like, especially with CBT, like maybe it would start off with like looking at images of needles, and then watching videos of other people get shots, and then like it's a progression to realize like, oh, that person's still alive, and maybe it was a pinch, but they're still okay. Even thinking about that pinch made me wince just now. But yeah, so it's like the little ways of like, whether it's having the time to like process it through therapy, like talking about why it's so scary, but then like we can't stay there. We have to take action on it. So I think maybe another step for myself that I could take is like, it's like I don't know, maybe practicing getting pinched.
Yeah,
I don't know, a pinch or...
It's interesting because, I mean, that's how is fear introduced? Fear is introduced through an experience, right? And so you have an experience, you're like, oh, that was terrible. I can't believe that happened. And the next thing you know, like I've never really been afraid of needles, but I think like even when I used to get shots, it wasn't a big deal. Like, oh, it's a little pain, but I'll be over it. And I remember last time I went to go get my blood drawn one time, and I did kind of like start like freezing up, and I remember like the nurse asked me like, "Are you okay?" But I remember it went back to when. A good friend of mine, his life insurance company, I'm not going to say his life insurance company, or his life insurance company, he had a nurse come out to my house to take my blood to test me to see what kind of like, if they would give me premium life insurance. And she gave me a shot, but this lady could not find my vein. She gave me like 2 shots in my left arm, 2 shots in the right arm, went back to the left arm to go again, and when she got the needle in, she got the needle in, and she goes to do something and she drops something.
Oh my gosh! So I'm twitching right now.
She drops something. She bends over to get it while holding in her other hand, like in her right hand. Or maybe her left hand. She's holding the needle in with her left hand into my arm. She bends over onto the ground to go pick up something. While she does that, she lifts the needle up. So my skin...
I would have died.
My skin lifts up. And I'm like, she's like, I'm so sorry. I was like, I need you to hurry up and get out my house.
Yeah, I would have kicked her.
But yeah, and then later on when I got a shot, I felt myself like react. So I think it was like, maybe I had some trauma. Maybe I've had trauma. Wow. I never knew it. Wow.
I mean, yeah, there's so many different levels of trauma. As we know, this is like the theme word of our generation right now. Yeah. Everybody has trauma, which a lot of people do. So it is what it is. But there's different levels of trauma.
I mean, there's a lot of kids that I've worked with who I am positive that they've had PTSD.
All right.
Definitely, especially coming out of like Oakland, West Oakland, like a lot of these kids,
community violence.
Yeah, a lot of these kids are dealing with a lot. Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you for listening to this episode of the Miller Time Podcast. This was the first part on our series on Spark. We've been talking a lot about limiting beliefs, where limiting beliefs come from, and we wanted to just make sure that our audience knew a little bit more about limiting beliefs. As we continue the conversation in our next episode, we'll talk about how you can overcome your limiting beliefs and actually create empowering beliefs that can help you create the extraordinary life you desire. But first, we should know that in life, we will come across a lot of limiting beliefs. And in fact, some of us may have way more limiting beliefs than we know, and it is almost near impossible to deal with every single limiting belief, especially in one moment. So when dealing with limiting beliefs, we should be mindful of what is the limiting belief that is creating the biggest impact in my life right now. And we wanted to leave you all with some tools that you can take away today and use to help you identify, 1, if you have a limiting belief, 2, where that limiting belief is impacting you, and then 3, eventually begin to move and transform from a limiting belief or a focus on limiting beliefs to a focus on empowering beliefs. And when that is what we call Spark. So, before we end, I want to give you a couple of questions that you can ask yourself. And as you go through these questions, you spend some time reflecting. You can use these questions to help you identify if you have a limiting belief, to identify what that limiting belief is, and then eventually begin the work of moving from a focus on limiting beliefs to empowering belief. First question. 1, identify, is there an area of your life where you are less than satisfied? An area of your life where you are dissatisfied in the results. This can be physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, financial, even career. Is there an area of your life where you are less than satisfied? It is less than extraordinary. And have you known about this area but have been unable to create change in this area? If this is the case, then most likely you have a limiting belief. Now, what could that mean? That means that there may be an area just like your physical health where you know that you need to go to the gym and you know that you need to do better. And there may be a belief like, I don't have enough energy to go to the gym, or healthy food costs too much. And because you believe in those thoughts, you are unable to actually create change to change your life so that you can live an extraordinary life in your health. You have a limiting belief that is holding you back, and that can be across the board in any area of your life. So once you've identified an area in your life that you are less than satisfied and it is less than extraordinary, second thing you need to do is you need to identify what is an action step that you can do, that you can take right now that would create change in your life in a positive direction right now. A lot of times we should be able to identify a couple of areas, if not just one area, that we could take right now, that we could do right now that would create the change that we need. Identify what is that area, identify what is that action. And as you start to think about that action, some of you might already be doing it right now. You might start having some thoughts that come up and some beliefs that are coming up around that action. We want to explore those beliefs. So what you're going to do is you're going to take time really exploring the beliefs that are associated with that action that is related to an area of your life that you are dissatisfied. And as you begin to explore those actions, we want to make sure that we're not discriminating against any beliefs. We want to make sure that we're really looking at every belief in a good framework to kind of set up so that you can identify your beliefs. I like to use these sentence openers. There are a few of them. One is, I believe, I am not, I can, I cannot, I have, I don't have, I will, or I will not. You can use these sentence openers. One might say, I believe that I don't know how to work out at the gym, or I am not capable to losing any more weight. I don't know how to use the machines. I don't have enough energy to go to the gym. These limiting beliefs, just back on the fitness area, could be some beliefs that can be stopping you from taking action that you know you should be doing. Once we identify, you might come up with a bunch of different beliefs. What we want to do is we really want to identify what is that belief that is most prevalent, the one that's creating the biggest impact and that is stopping you from taking action. That is the limiting belief that we want to focus on, because that limiting belief is the big one. If we can take out the big one, then we can take all the little suckers later. So what we want to focus on, the three questions, I'll repeat what it is. One, identify, is there an area of your life that you are less than satisfied? And you've known and you've been less than satisfied for a while, but you have been unable to take action in that area. Two, what's the action step that you could do that would create the change right now that you have not done? Then, once we've identified the area, what's the beliefs that are coming up around or associated to that action? What are the beliefs? What are coming up immediately when you start thinking about that action step? Well, I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. I don't have any support. I don't have friends. What are the beliefs that are coming up? Identify all those beliefs and then focus on what is the main belief that is stopping you from taking action. And when you tune back in next week and we start to continue this conversation on beliefs and spark is the transformation of the focus from limiting belief to an empowering belief, we'll be able to move our mindset from focusing on these limiting beliefs, which is stopping us from taking action, fire those beliefs, and hire some new empowering beliefs that will help you take action and create the extraordinary life you desire. We just want to thank you so much for listening to this podcast, to the Miller Time Podcast. We appreciate all of your support and all of our people who've been reaching out to us through email, through social media. We greatly appreciate you. If you have any questions or any thoughts, or you just want to say hi, please feel free to reach out to us. We have our Instagram up and running, the Miller Time Podcast on Instagram. You could also hit us up on our business website at www.CoCo.planmylife.com. You can click that brace button and you'll be able to send us an email directly. Or you could even just send us an email to themillers@CoCoPlanMyLife.com, and we will respond. We love talking to all of our people. We're all about people, and that's what we do. And so we hope that you've been blessed, and we hope that you found this helpful. And we hope to see you next week, tapping in to continue this conversation around beliefs. Again, we believe that you have the power to create the extraordinary life that you desire. All right, y'all. Peace.